Hi there, happy hump day and welcome to Wednesday. So you don't have to spend too long looking in the media or looking in news reports to find examples of organisations where things haven't gone to plan. And when things haven't gone to plan, often at the root cause of that, the root cause of the stuff up, the root cause of the bad behaviour, the unethical behaviour is culture. Now, of course, culture is just what happens when groups of people come together. We form a culture, and you'll have often heard organisational culture referred to as the way things are done around here. Culture can have a massive impact on the way people in an organisation operate, behave, interact with each other. And that's because ultimately we're tribal creatures. And as tribal creatures, we notice what other people are doing, and we can very quickly absorb the behaviour of others, even if that behaviour and those standards aren't our own standards. Sadly, this adaptation can happen far faster than we realise. Now, here's a good example. It dates back to the 1970s. And there was a primatologist, Hans Kummer, who's doing some work with baboons in Ethiopia. And what he wanted to see was how those shifts in behaviour can happen and how long it takes. So he took two different species of baboons. And those baboons have different behavioural traits. And what he did was he took one female from one species and one female from the other, and he swapped, because he wanted to see how quickly they would adapt to the behaviour that was different to their normal behaviour. What he found is it didn't take long at all. He thought it was going to take at least a week, maybe a couple of days. It took an hour. So these baboons, who had been, up until very recently, just doing things the way they had always done things, learnt very quickly when they moved into a different tribe of baboons that they needed to behave differently for them to be able to survive and to get on with the other baboons that were there. Now, of course, we all like to think we're more evolved than other animals on the planet, and that we're more conscious of what is influencing how we think and how we behave and how we turn up. But we're actually far more influenced by the behaviour of others than we like to give credit. It's what I call culturalization. So think about it. The first time you enter an environment that's new, the first time you move into an organisation or even just a new team, you will very quickly learn the social cues. You'll very quickly learn what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what you should say and what you shouldn't say. And if you have a social faux pas of some type, you'll very quickly get called aside to go, yeah, that's not how we do things around here. As tribal creatures, we quickly shun people who are different, who don't behave in a way that we think is the acceptable way of behaving. So as a result, it usually doesn't take very long for you to adopt different ways of thinking and different ways of behaving. The danger is when you're in that culture, often you just don't notice the impact that the culture is having on you, because it's like it can creep up on you. And one day you wake up and you feel like you're no longer yourself. Now, there's no doubt that the culture in an organisation is bigger than one person, but everybody can play a part in shaping how that culture operates. Now, depending on where you are in the organisation, the further you are in the food chain, the organisational hierarchy, there's no doubt that you have more influence and impact. But everyone has some impact on the culture. And the choice is, what type of impact do you want to have? How do you want to engage with the other people that are around you? And part of that starts with really understanding what's the culture of the organisation that I'm working in. Because once you understand the culture, what you can then step back and analyse is work out, how is that culture impacting me? Is it impacting me in a way that is good, that's healthy, that aligns with my values and who I want to be? Or is it perhaps impacting me in some way that's not good? So when you're doing your cultural assessment, here's some questions to consider. Firstly, what do you actually like about your organisation's culture? What do you think is healthy? What do you think is unhealthy, and what's hindering you? What do you observe when you see the senior leaders in the executive team? Do they live up to the espoused culture? Or is there a gap between what they say and what they actually do? Are you living the organisation's values? And are you staying true to your own values? And is there perhaps a disconnect between your values and your culture's values? What are the sort of rules of the game in your organisation, the accepted rituals and way things get done? What do you see in your organisation that makes you feel uncomfortable? Can you see that the culture might be having a positive impact on you? Or are there ways that it's having a negative impact? And what could you do to enhance the culture in your organisation? No doubt there's many more questions that you could ask, but the key thing is to ask them. Do that internal reflection. I always love the quote from the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, where he talks about the importance of culture and that culture really is one of those elements that differentiates organisations. The question for you is, what's the part that you're playing in contributing to a culture that brings out your best? Take care, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.